So we have three presenters with us today. We've got three 8-minute presentations. So this is a fairly short, sharp, snappy series of presentations from Dr. Nadia Zainuddin, Joan Young, and Dr. Tanja Kamin. I'll give a very quick introduction for each, then I'm going to let each of them do their presentations, and we'll have 5 to 10 minutes for question and answer at the end. So Dr. Nadia Zainuddin is a lecturer in marketing at the University of Wollongong. She currently works at the Faculty of Business and is based in both Sydney and Wollongong campuses in New South Wales. Joan Young is the CEO of Colmar, Brunton, and has spent the last 27 years working with organisations to apply strategic marketing thinking to deliver more effective programs, policy, communications and services. And Tanja is Assistant Professor in the Department of Communication Studies at the University of Ljubljana, that's in Slovenia, currently a visiting fellow at the University of Sydney and the Sydney Democracy Network. So I'm going to hand over to Nadia. As I said, it'll be 3 8-minute presentations.
Sorry, it's not my PowerPoint. Okay, thank you everyone for being here today, and I applaud you all for staying right until the end, and I do apologize on behalf of New South Wales for the weather. Apparently it's the worst storm New South Wales has ever seen in the last in 8 years, and it was on the news, so I'm sure it must be true. So we received so many submissions from all over the world. This isn't, sorry. Sorry, Luke. Okay. I might just keep talking while we try to sort out the technical issues. We received so many submissions from all over the world, and obviously we expected papers from what I would say the usual suspects, like Australia, the UK, and the US. But as you could probably tell over the last couple of days, we also have lots of representatives from far corners of the world, like South Africa, Bangladesh, Taiwan, and Indonesia, just to name some of the few countries that have been represented. And as one of the academic co-chairs of the conference, I was in a very unique, thank you, and privileged position to see all of the paper submissions. And so in preparation for what I was going to speak to you about today, I thought I'd do a content and thematic analysis on all of the submissions to try and uncover some of the themes based on the work that us as a social marketing community is doing and is producing. And so what I thought I would talk about today is really where we're at, what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, and knowing that, how do we move forward then to get to where we want to be? And so I kind of identified 3 paper types that reflected the work that we as a group are doing, and I think it reflects the work that we do in social marketing practice. The first paper type I call Pushing the Boundaries, and then we had Social Marketing Straight Up, and then we had the Could Have Done Better. And so the Pushing the Boundaries papers really reflected work that what I thought as one of the academic co-chairs was work that really engaged with the new concepts, new theories, new frameworks. And over the last 2 days, we've heard about all sorts of approaches and techniques and perspectives and theories. And as someone who's very big on theory, I love theory. That was really exciting for me to see. And some of the interesting theoretical concepts that, had been talked about at this conference so far were things like branding and social marketing. The use of mobile technology was talked about quite extensively. Human geography is an alternative perspective or an additional perspective to understanding social change. Transformative services and transformative consumer research. But even innovative methodological approaches like ethnography was something that was talked about. But of course, pushing the boundaries alone and drawing from new theories and concepts is not enough. The work had to be work that was well articulated, well written and clearly communicated. And a lot of the papers in this category did meet that criteria. It wasn't just papers that, thought, oh, I'll just use a new theory and a new concept, but actually, really delved deep into what these new theories meant and really considered, how could they lend themselves to social marketing research and practice. What I found as well was, or what I think is nice, is the work in this category continues a conversation that we started recently about really needing to push the boundaries of social marketing. And the Journal of Social Marketing kind of formally started this conversation with a special issue called Fresh Ideas and New Thinking. And the call for that was really, let's think outside the box and, move beyond the theory of planned behavior and the 4 Ps. And the MOA model. And for those of you who were in Toronto 2 years ago, you might remember Fiona Spotswood standing up here saying social change needs to be transdisciplinary. And what I've seen over the last 2 days is actually we have moved forward, and that's really nice. And we have evidence of that in the conference this year. So I think that's something that we've done very well. The next category of papers describes work that really represents so-called traditional social marketing programs, not necessarily drawing from, the most new or the most sexy or innovative concepts or theories, but nonetheless work that was still very well considered, very well written, and communicated work that was clearly conducted rigorously and competently. And so the point I think I wanted to make with this was, just because you do have social marketing programs that are based on so-called less sexy or maybe boring for some of you frameworks like the theory of planned behavior and the MOA model, doesn't necessarily mean that they are of any less value than the work that does try to push the boundaries. Now, the next category of papers, and I told Luke when I spoke to him about my idea, was I didn't want to stand up here and go, yeah, this is what we're doing well and we can all feel good about ourselves. I also wanted to be critical and go, well, what aren't we doing so well so we can improve? There was another paper type which was that could have done better, and some of the common issues with that or problematic issues were things like underdeveloped conceptualizations or programs that were poorly executed, or just a general lack of clarity in the communication in the way it was written up. But what I wanted to implore everyone is, rather than critique or criticize this work and saying, well, it's actually just not good enough and didn't make the cut, is to really take one step further and try to understand, well, why, do these authors face these issues? Why are they occurring and why are they happening? And when you actually, scratch the surface and, find that maybe actually this person isn't a marketer and probably doesn't know how to use the marketing language to communicate. Or you might go, well, actually this person's from an institution or an organization that doesn't understand research or doesn't provide opportunities to learn about research or professional development. And so rather than just critique, seek to understand why. So what does it all mean? I think really what we're doing well is we are engaging with new concepts and theories and frameworks and ideas, and the quality of our work is of reasonable good quality, having seen all of the papers. But what we're not doing well is, although we are engaging with new ideas and concepts and theories, a lot of this engagement tends to only occur at the surface, and it only really scratches the surface, and it doesn't delve as deep enough to these theories and concepts to, be able to provide a meaningful understanding of how they're going to work or not work in social marketing. I think as well, what we're not doing well is the tendency for, people to do very, theoretically, heavy research, to criticize the research that tends to be less theoretically oriented and saying, oh, this is rubbish work because there's no theory. And I think there's a danger in doing that, because I feel that there is a place for everyone. There is good research that's done that's very practice-oriented, that may not necessarily, be driven by theory. And, we've seen some evidence of that over the last 2 days. And so I think, that's something we need to avoid. And so in the spirit of trying to work out how to move forward as a community, there are 3 key areas I would like to propose for us to move forward, which is investing in the future, investing in each other, and investing in our community. I've been incredibly inspired by so many people over the last 2 days, in particular Kathleen, who spoke yesterday during the Future Now panel, and she pretty much said half of what I was going to say in this bit. And I do feel that there is a need to invest in the future for all of the reasons that Kathleen outlined, but I wanted to give you a bit more evidence about why I think it's important to invest in the future in terms of junior researchers and students. A lot of the Pushing the Boundaries papers, or papers that I thought fell in this category, were first authored by junior researchers, ECRs, mid-career researchers, and research students. And you'll see when we go through the awards tonight. And at the same time, I read through every single review for every paper that was ultimately accepted to this conference. And what I found was the most constructive and the best feedback and the best review, again, came from junior researchers, which is really nice because these people took the time to read these papers, congratulate their colleagues on what was done well, but also offer them suggestions on how to improve the aspects that weren't done very well at all. Yet there are many challenges faced by junior researchers, and Kathleen covered these aspects yesterday, so I won't really dwell on that. But some solutions that I can add to this dialogue is for all of us as a community to just be open to ideas no matter where they come from, whether they're from a practitioner or a student or a junior researcher or a senior researcher. A good idea is a good idea, and talent is talent no matter where it comes from. What as well I would like to implore everyone is to avoid the stereotypes. Not all senior academics know what you're talking about. Some of them do, but likewise, not all junior researchers are very great. But a lot of us are. And again, things like financial and non-financial support, as some of you might be aware of. So just to quickly ask you, how many of you are academics in the audience? And how many of these academics, how many of you have actually, approached a practitioner to collaborate? Very few of that. So what I wanted to suggest is, leading into my next point, is we need to invest in each other and be less reliant on institutional support and more reliant on peer support. The reality of, the environment is, funding or government funding is shrinking. Many institutions are, reducing the emphasis on research. And so I think we need to draw from each other to provide those professional development opportunities. And we can teach each other and learn from one another. And what Kishan said in his presentation, spread the love, which I liked. But I didn't want all of us to go, yeah, let's collaborate, and that's what tends to happen. But I wanted us to actually, do something after we leave today. Get a business card from an academic if you're a practitioner, or get a business card from a practitioner if you're an academic. Connect on Twitter if you didn't have any paper business cards with you, and please follow up post-conference rather than talk about doing it and not actually doing it at all. And how many of you are members of any of these professional associations? Okay, quite a few of you, but not as many as it would be nice to see. And that leads to my third point, which is we need to invest in our community. Apathy will ruin us, and not getting involved and not engaging is something that will lead to the detriment of our social marketing community. Say yes to things. Very often, like for example, at the breakfast this morning, there was a call for volunteers to talk about the benchmark criteria, but it's often the same people that volunteer to do things over and over again. And while we do it out of love and, respect for our discipline, it does get quite tiring, as Kathleen demonstrated to you yesterday. So joining associations, coming to events, giving seminars, as well as attending seminars, writing opinion pieces, attending conferences, so please, some action rather than just some talk. So contact your regional association, whether it's the AASM or the ISMA or the ESMA, and ask them, what can you do for them? Volunteer to do one thing, whether it's, write a newsletter, or whether it's write one opinion piece, or give a presentation, facilitate a workshop. That's something that we can do to support our community. And so Alan Tapp here came out last year, and gave a seminar that was a free seminar, and that's something we should think about doing more of. And again, if people wanted to be involved, you can be part of a conference, not just by attending it, but by reviewing papers, running workshops like we had on Sunday, and as Doug Mackenzie-Moore is doing tomorrow as well. And so I think the last point that I wanted to make is, it's not to think about, what's in it for me, and not think about ourselves as individuals. There's a lot of self-interest that happens, especially within the academic field. And I think it's to think about what can we do as individuals to contribute to the community. Because when the community progresses, it means that it lifts everyone up, and collectively we'll be in a position to be able to make more meaningful social change. And that's what we're all really here for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Meaningful social change. Hands up who's all about that. Yeah, and hands up who feels they've had a big lift and inspiration as a result of this conference. Awesome, and hands up who thinks social means social media. Okay, well this leads on, nice segue, to the topic of my talk today, which is about when social takes the high ground, what is the future for social marketing? What we have on our plates at the moment, from the practitioner perspective very much, is a massive level of interest and engagement with the phenomena of social media. And it's very evident to us in Australia, I'm not sure if it's the case everywhere else, that there's been a massive switch in terms of the when we look at the fourth P in terms of promotion, the channels and media channels that our communicators are choosing to use, away from traditional mass media and much more towards the use of social media and digital type messaging and interactive products. So this can be a fantastic thing. There's no doubt that there are some really innovative uses of social media that we're all seeing. I'm not sure in what countries other road safety type campaign work is actually getting to the point of inviting young, risky drivers to take part in road safety programs by registering for them, which immediately sends information through their mobile phone about, or back to the program about where those people are. They also provide information about who they're with and what they're doing and where they're going. And then that information is used to stimulate very personalised messages about the risks and consequences to them of their dangerous driving behaviour. So some of the case studies that we're starting to see about really targeted, really personalised, really potentially much more interactive communications happening is amazing. There's absolutely no doubt about it. However, there's also issues with this massive focus on social media. I've been working in the practitioner field of social marketing for many decades now, and I remember that the first conferences I used to go to, the big debate was around, oh, it's terrible being called social marketers because public policy people don't like marketing. And it was a big problem for us in trying to really show the worth and the value of what social marketing has to offer in terms of social change when you're up against people who don't want to talk about anything commercial and don't like the concept of any kind of commercial marketing. So that was our big challenge. But of course what we're finding now is that there's an even bigger challenge, which is when you get asked to come and talk about social marketing and you rock up with what you think are the world's best practice approaches and some fantastic case studies on social change, the audience sighs in anguish because you're not there to talk about Facebook. And so what we have found more and more at the moment is that we've been outflanked, outgunned, beaten at what should have been our own game, pretty much left in the dust by the young upstart and buzzword of the day. Our experience is that most people who are interested in social media should be much more interested in social marketing and what it has to offer in terms of their ability to develop effective programs. So why is this happening? Some of the latest research that's recently been released from ACMA, their communications report based on 2013 and 14 data in Australia, shows us why this is happening. 92% of Australians have used the internet in the last 6 months, most recently. So we have 70% of the population going online with a mobile phone, 50% going online with a tablet, 10.7 million internet users going online more than once a day, 10.9 million people using e-commerce type transactions, 54% using blogs, 49% digital workers, and 97% growth in the volume of mobile data downloaded. Oh my gosh, so we've got 92% of Australians using online as a way to get information or to communicate with others. Interestingly, we still have 1.1 million Australians that are offline, that aren't, you can't reach through digital or online mechanisms. But this is a huge change in our society and an incredible new opportunity for us. So how does social marketing take the high ground when we're being redefined by many people in the marketing space as being all about digital and social media rather than social marketing? I'm not sure of the answer, but what I do know is that we must take the high ground back, because whilst social media is a truly awesome and groundbreaking force with the ability to sometimes reach our most vulnerable people at the times when they're most open to its promise, it's also, at the end of the day, just another media channel. It's just another tool in our toolkit. In the wrong hands or with the wrong message, it has the potential to do much harm. So as social marketers, for us, we need to recapture the high ground, because by definition what we're all about is doing things that are good for people and that will produce social good. So we need to embrace social media as a new and exciting tool to help us engage with people and to influence their behaviour. But it is only one of the tools. Now, I'm here today to give you some brand new information. This study hasn't even been released yet. Don't take photos of this slide. I'm waiting for people to take photos of this slide. I have to get it taken off the conference proceedings. But what we have done is a massive study, an independent study, looking at 21 brands, looking at 18 months of their sales data, or what they would say is the equivalent of sales if they're a government agency, like calls to register for a service or calls to get more information if it's an information product. So 18 months of data, 2,300 data points, an exploration of pre, during and post-campaign work. What we've tried to look at here is, what is the ROI dollar figure depending on the media channel that's used? And so we looked at TV, radio, and online or digital mechanisms. And what we found was one of the most effective channels is actually radio. But if you look at combined, which most campaigns are, they use more than one channel. We find that radio and online together can get an average of 23% uplift in your behaviour change. Now that does range from a high of 74% for some specific campaigns and a low of no impact whatsoever. And the message of this graph is really just to say online digital mechanisms for communication is just another tool. It is no more or less effective than any other media channel. So it's a bit of a warning in terms of people that are totally relying on social media to get behaviour change. It's just like relying on TV or relying on radio. On its own, without the integration with other elements of the marketing mix, it's going to be less effective. Interestingly, what we found was that radio had the highest potential uplift at an average of 17%, online 14%, and TV at 13% based on the dollar spend for every dollar you get back, if it's a dollar outcome. So I thought that was interesting for you all to see. It's just another media channel. So I really wanted to finish this talk by talking about getting back to basics, looking at who are we as social marketers, what have we got to deliver, the promise that we're actually going to change the world and make a difference because we use these best practice criteria to develop fantastic work that actually changes behaviour. That's what gives us the moral high ground. Thank you very much.
Hello, the very last talk tonight. So, in less than 30 years, social marketing has developed from a rather narrow concept focusing primarily on individual behavior into a discipline that is finally able to critically reflect its position in both healing and perpetuating social problems. As the discipline progressed, we gradually comprehended the most social problems are too complex to be dealt only with traditional marketing frameworks. The emergence of social ecologies and critical social marketing paradigms under the social marketing umbrella has demonstrated that social marketers are now ready to engage with society more critically and more holistically. A growing number of scholars show the eagerness for a reflexive turn in social marketing and endorse more engagement with reasoning and structuring initiatives for social change that reaches beyond disciplinary borders. This is the wave that we in social marketing should all catch and proudly serve. Interdisciplinarity has been a topic of wide interest in the sciences, social sciences, and humanities for decades. The concept was also picked up by politicians and enthusiastically used in policy documents related to social change. In fact, interdisciplinarity was often over-enthusiastically used, I would say, as a buzzword and an empty signifier. It regularly lacked consensual understanding and real commitments. We could even agree with Immanuel Wallerstein, a progressive American sociologist, that assertions of the merits of combining two or more disciplinary approaches might even serve as a reinforcement of the intellectual legitimacy to viewing disciplines as two or more separate modes. However, we need to seriously rethink the production of knowledge within disciplinary borders for two reasons. On one hand, we still witness the growing specializations that are sometimes instrumentally driven solely by the need for careerist niche building that further produce division between knowledge categories. On the other hand, we are confronted with increasingly complex environmental, economical, political challenges that urge us for better synthesis and interchange of knowledge. We should thus become more problem-solving focused than discipline-driven. And something about this was said yesterday by Jeff when he was talking about breaking silos and as agents of change. So social marketing has a great potential to contribute to the cross-disciplinary future of social change. This is a challenge for both academics and practitioners. In the last decades, we came to an agreement that our role as social marketers is in designing interventions that would help individuals and societies to live better. Social change is thus our core common denominator, or at least it should be. Thus, we need to embrace a more proactive role, both in critically conceptualizing behavior and social change, and in contributing to social change on the field. Wallerstein points out, and now I quote, "We are now living in a long moment of transition wherein the contradictions of that system have made it impossible to continue to adjust its machinery. We are living in a period of real historical choice, and this system is incomprehensible on the basis of the assumptions of that system. We are thus challenged to feel comfortable within uncertainties of transition that contributes to the transformation of the world by illuminating the choices without appealing to the crunch of a belief in the inevitable triumph of the good." And something about that was said yesterday as well. We should trust. We need to work on change. We should do something, sometimes maybe make mistakes, but we should trust in the progress. This said, there are many new areas that social marketers should engage with, thus opening the field to other topics, in addition to health and environment, that have so far received the most attention from social marketers. For example, topics that deal with new uncertainties in the affluent societies, like new poverty, food security, dignified aging, deteriorating infrastructure, but also older unresolved issues like human rights, gender equality, political participation. While observing a growing number of the bottom-up movements and civil initiatives that have recently surfaced in Europe, but also across the world, one could see manifestations of bold new ideas and sincere desires of people for social change. Initiatives like urban gardening, time banks, universal basic income, farmers market, alternative energy production and distribution, all these are new platforms where people of different profiles, of different ages, intellectuals and specialists of different kinds meet. They join in expressing a need for change with regard to environmental problems, problems related to the growing socioeconomic inequalities, public access to basic and existential resources like water, food, and energy, but also information and knowledge. These initiatives are carriers of new ideas, new utopias, new theoretical contemplations, and nucleuses of demands for universal social change. These initiatives are also new topics in which social marketing could engage more progressively. Social marketing could position itself not only as an advocate for these new initiatives, but also as a subject that will contextualize these initiatives and illuminate the choices for social transformations. By this, social marketing could evolve in a serious paradigm that cuts across disciplines and contextualizes new initiatives in relation to the existing social problems and more abstract ideas and theories of societies. To conclude, the point of this short talk is the following. On the level of practice, many social problems remain under-contextualized and caught in the neoliberal explanatory logic that does not offer efficient solutions. While on the level of social theory, conceptualization of social change often remains too abstract to be useful for field interventions. Social marketing can position itself in the interspace between theories of social change and initiatives for social change. It should reframe social problems and help the initiatives for social change to rise above particularities. Social marketing can do that through capacity building and by designing models of social change that consider the wider environment, policy, structural conditions, and social norms that influence social outcomes. I would like to conclude with thought of a very wise man that I listened to in the ballroom one a few minutes ago, actually. He said, university was once a thinking place. Collaborations were essential. I would like to say that social marketing has this great possibility to live that dream, maybe to step back a bit, think, and try to collaborate a bit more cross-disciplinary, because our subject matter is, of course, at the borderline of various disciplines. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anna. It's probably a fairly eclectic mix of presentations, but I think all a fairly common theme of collaboration, of opportunities for social marketing moving forward. We've got time for probably one or two questions, and then we'll hand over to Jeff to close the conference. But if there's just one or two questions from anybody on the floor, we can take those. No, I sense that everyone is keen for Jeff to close the conference and go to dinner. Okay, with no further ado, I'll hand over to Jeff.